All right. Welcome to the first chat of 2023. I'm your Dark Lord and Sith, Tyrathis. Sith Lord plays this. Welcome to my chat. As for always for chat, it's ask me anything always. So if you're on the chat screen, put it in chat. Should appear right over there. Right over there. It'll be up on the most of the chat. So if you want to chat, say something, just ask a question or make a statement. I will try to address it as soon as I'm able. Always no politics and no religion. Politics and religion are a touchy subject for most people, so we're going to try to keep clear of that. I want people to be respectful of each other, and above all, keep it clean. These do go up on the network, so social media network. So just you know, keep it good. Last time we were chatting. Oh, before we get started, this is a chatting about many different topics and so forth. There's really no set list of things to do, or these are just basically topics that I got written down. They could jump from one to the next. It depends how long we're going. Last time I was chatting, I did basically mostly all my video game history in 1 hour, and I forgot some topics which I'll bring up after we get done with the introductions here. But the other thing I want to say is this episode was sponsored by me. I fund my whole channel. I am not funded by any organization whatsoever. There are no private companies paying me money to spew out any sponsorship or promotional items or anything like that. Not yet, anyways. I doubt it ever will happen. I'm not worried about it too much, but this is all straight me funding this network and these chats and these channels and so forth. I am not paying anybody to do anything. The only person I paid was somebody to make the logo, which you see right down here. Yeah, I can't do this right. Right there. That's the only thing it did in the background, obviously, of the web screen. So, other than that, yeah, I don't have any other cool things. I'm not going to do anything special for my websites. Not yet, anyways. I really don't have the wherewithal to do that at the moment. But once I get into it a little bit more in depth, yeah, there'll be some discussions, um, some chats on some Reddit questions, etc. Exploring the possibilities. But we're doing all right. We barely even got 40 subscribers, so we're doing okay for 2023. We've already got up to 35 subscribers. I'd love to get to 50 sometime before spring, and possibly 100. The goal was try to get 100 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm not going to twist anybody's arm to start following the channel, but if you like what you see on the streams or any of the chats, or if you're watching this on YouTube or on any of the feeds later, just know that, hey, this is all funded by me. This is a low budget, low production show. So if anything glitches, anything looks weird, anything sounds weird, audio is screwy or whatever, that's just me being me. So just want to let you know that this is low budget everything. Low budget mic, low budget camera, low budget personality. Anyways, so last time we were talking about video games and my video game history, and I was going to start it on. There was two video games that I didn't mention that were pivotal in growing up in the 90s and 80s of the United States, and one of them was Super Mario RPG. That was a game by, I believe, Enix before they merged with Square to become Square Enix, or the other way around. Anyways, that video game was probably one of the greatest RPG games played in for me in the 90s besides Earthbound. And because it was a little goofier, it was Mario, and you could be Peach, and you had to rescue Peach. They introduced characters that you never seen again for the most part. There was Gino, which was everybody's favorite, a little puppet dude that was possessed by these star people. That's never mentioned again. There's a lot of characters that kind of just got taken out after pretty much after the game. You don't see them much anymore. I haven't played any of the new Mario racing games or the any of the brawls recently in the new Switch system, so I'm a little out of touch with who the characters are in there. But yeah, there was a cloud dude. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. and some other interesting people. But it was a fun RPG. It'll take you a good solid couple 2 or 3 hours, not 2 or 3 hours, probably a couple about 10 hours maybe to beat. I don't know. I never really marathon the game, but it was a fun RPG, and it had some really nice battle music. So if you want to play that game, go get yourself SNES Mini, and that's where they have that game on there. So they also have, I believe, pounds on that too, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I booted that thing up. But Earthbound was another game. It was actually titled Mother 2, because apparently there was a Mother 1, and there's also a Mother 3, which are only Japanese exclusive titles. They never really came to America, but Earthbound with Mother 2 came to America, and it was probably regarded as the best RPG for the SNES by fans. But I'm not sure if that stands to this day, or if there's other people that say the Final Fantasy series was a little bit better. But Earthbound was probably one of the most bizarre, interesting RPGs, and it required a lot of thought. And I remember it coming with a nice thick booklet of how to play the game, where to find everything, etc., maps and so forth. And it was just an epic game. Um, Probably one of the longer SNES games. And the weird way was how to beat the game and time travel and thoughts about. Some people say, "Oh, this game's about abortion and so forth," and stuff like that. Weird, crazy stuff. The music was good. The fighting mechanics were interesting. It was one heck of a game. I'd recommend getting that too, just to play Earthbound. Try not to get one of those mods or whatever that you can play it on any system, because Earthbound had this anti-hacking kind of thing that if you try to do it, the game would like freeze up towards the end and you'd just be stuck, or something along the lines that wouldn't let you finish the game. So there's a lot of programmers out there who do that kind of craziness. So Earthbound, definitely one of the better RPGs of the 90s, as well as Mario RPG. So if you ever see those games and on the SNES miniature, you should try playing them. Oh man, and that's about the basic history of my video game career in you know growing up in the 90s, 80s, and the 2000s. I don't play a lot of modern games. You won't see it. The only modern game really right now is Cyberpunk 2077 and Borderlands 3. That's the only two modern games I've been playing right now. Um, but anyways, speaking of the 80s and 90s, we're gonna move on to the next topping point. So the next thing I want to talk about is growing up in the 80s and 90s, watching the original Star Trek movies as well as the original Star Wars movies. I mean, I would literally be home from school sick or something, or when I was in kindergarten, we had AM and PM classes, and before mom would get home, my dad would throw on, in the darkest way possible. You'd basically close all the curtains in the living room, be dark as heck. You throw on one of the original Star Trek movies on VHS, or the original Star Wars movies on VHS. And that was kind of interesting, even though when I was younger, I kind of got the movies all mixed up and wasn't sure who was in what or anything like that. But, just seeing, A New Hope as younger, I was like, man, this movie is slow at points. It only gets exciting until you get to the Death Star run. The rest of the movie is just really, really dull. And that's the way the movies were back in the day. Movies were a lot more story driven, not action driven. You got these modern films that are all one fight scene to the next fight scene. There's no long pauses for dialogue and standing around and talking about things or not doing anything interesting, just character development and building. And you got all these newer shows and TVs and movies where they got stuff going on constantly, you know, things happening quickly. I mean, I can't really replicate the original, like the original James Bond movies. There are a lot of times where the original James Bond movies where it's just dialogue and boring and slow, and it's like, woof. These movies wouldn't fly nowadays with the kind of dialogue and pacing that they got since back in the day. So things are a lot faster and a little bit more intense and a little bit more uh, people being meta and getting in the fourth wall breaks, etc. Stuff that's just crazy. But you didn't get really that in Star Wars, A New Hope, or Return of the Jedi, or um, The Empire Strikes Back. They had slow parts in there. There were times, on Dagobah, okay, Luke's learning the Force, and Han and Chewie and Leia and C-3PO are hiding out in an asteroid belt. Nothing's really happening. They're just kind of there. you know this is story building for the character. It's not action packed, not like nowadays where everything's just like go 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 go. You watch the newer trilogies, things just seem one thing next to another. There's no pacing. There's just more next action scene, you know next point of conflict, I guess. But in the Star Wars stories, the original ones, there's a little bit more pacing, a little bit more time in between things. In Empire Strikes Back, first you got Luke going to find out what happened to the probe droid, and then getting attacked by the Wampa, and Han chasing him down, and then them finding him. That's like a good 20 minutes of the runtime of the first part of the movie before they even get to the Battle of Hoth. And that's a pretty intense battle in the movie. It's probably one of the more better parts in the movie. And then after that, it's the escape from the planet, the asteroid field, where Han, Chewie, and Leia go hiding in the asteroid, and Luke goes to Dagobah and trains with Yoda, which is kind of a slower part of the movie. Luke's learning the Force, and Han and Chewie are trying to find a way to get away from the Empire and someplace safe. And they end up on Cloud City, and that's another slow point until eventually you get into Luke eventually getting the vision that Leia and Han are in trouble and goes to rescue him, which is weird that if you think about it, if Luke, or I mean, if let's say Luke never went to save Leia and Han from uh, Darth Vader, what would have happened? I mean, Han was already going to be frozen in carbonite anyways and taken to Jabba's palace. That's beyond the point, but Luke would have had to gone to rescue Leia and Chewie from the clutches of the Empire. Would he have been a better warrior if he stayed with Yoda? Who knows? We never, would he become a better Jedi if he just stayed and trained? But then he had to turn into his father for a brief moment and go out and try to save the day, be the hero, get into the field of action and just go on and try to rescue everybody. And that's the character right there. He's got a little bit of his father in him, but people pointed out that no, Luke is more like Queen Amidala than he is more like he's more like Padme than he is like Anakin. See, uh, Leia is more like Anakin than she is Padme. I mean, they both have personality traits you can see in both of them, but you can see which one's more dominant in that character than you can for the other character. And it wasn't really pointed out until you watched the Obi-Wan show earlier, middle of last year, and which was an okay show. I mean, there are parts where it felt a little clunky and weird, but it wasn't a bad show. As far as Star Wars goes, there's some that are just like cringeworthy. Like obviously, the Book of Boba Fett, the one is the speeder chase, which was probably the slowest speeder chase I've seen. I've seen faster funeral processions. It's just crazy. But they said, yeah, this looks good. Well, looks great. We'll just let this go through. Whatever, it could have been better. That could have been way better. And the fact that Boba Fett didn't really do much of anything felt really lame. I mean, just weird. Fennec's doing all the heavy work, and the Mandalorian's doing all the heavy work. So what was the point of all the show? Well, we're getting off topic again, but anyways, uh, so Star Wars in the 80s and the 90s was definitely different. I mean, so obviously seeing the Phantom Menace in theaters, that was pretty cool back in '99. Seeing Attack of the Clones and seeing Revenge of the Sith. I've pretty much seen all the original movies in the theaters at some point. The only movie that I have not really rewatched, and I mean, okay, they did do re-releases in the 90s, which is kind of technically like watching in theaters because they had it in theaters. But the one I didn't see in theaters, and I really regret it, was actually seeing the re-release of A New Hope. I never saw that in theaters because I was like, oh, back when I was a kid, I was like, oh, New Hope is probably the most boring of all the movies. I don't want to watch that in theaters. I'm going to watch it, wait for Empire to come out. Saw Empire in theaters. Saw Return of the Jedi in theaters. It was pretty sweet time back then to see actually the re-release, even though the updates to make it a little bit more connected to the Phantom Menace era with the droids and so the CGI and everything felt kind of weird at the time, because well, yeah, I remember that Lucas had barely any money in the 70s and early 80s to make some of these movies. He was basically trying his best to get this stuff greenlit with the limited stuff he had. I mean, there's a reason why there's a devil-like character in the games. Like they didn't have enough makeup props, money for makeup, so they just kind of dug around and found this weird devil mask. Like, all right, let's make a new character. That's why I think of the Novians right now, because it's like, well, we just needed something, and the devil head would happen to be there, so that's that. You know, it's weird stuff like that, but they say the necessity is, or I mean, sometimes you make the weirdest stuff with the limited budget you have. I mean, look at this stuff. I got stuff I bought online just to get this whole setup put together. Flag in the background, the color crystals of both Nevermai and Maka List are all there. Those were bought for somebody. The mug I got was bought online. It's not like they're expensive items or anything. They're basically shoestrings. But hell, you watch like an old TV show from the 90s and sometimes and made nowadays too is it's not as the same as it used to be, but Mystery Science Theater 3000 was the kind of show that was basically use whatever props you had just to design things. Joel Robinson or Joel Hodgson was the basically a prop comic who made all the stuff. He could see in weird stuff and turn it into something interesting. And that's how low budget it was. They just went to treasure chests or around their house and said, hey, let's make this into a prop, or let's make a robot out of this. That's the kind of stuff that George had to do back in the day. And Industrial Light and Magic had to make things work. Hell, the Phantom Menace, they use Q-tips for the stands. You can't tell because it's so blurry. But that was a whole prop made with little Q-tips that when they took a fan or a couple of fans and put it underneath there to make it look like they're moving. Really weird stuff. But with limited money and budget, you can make things work. And that's what the beauty of the original Star Wars was, is just all this little stuff that you never noticed, and things and weird stuff like that. Not everything can be made good with unlimited resources. Sometimes being restricted makes things better. Just how it is. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff, right? As far as Star Wars goes, I think I mentioned the last time I played a few of the original Star Wars games. So we'll just skip over that. Let's see, what else did I have? No. Oh, so yeah, we got in this year Mandalorian season 3. That's coming up in March, I believe. I'm not sure exactly when in March, but we're looking forward to that show coming out. I mean, considering what happened in the book of Boba Fett, you want to know what's up with the Mandalorian, because there was that whole episode pretty much dedicated to the Mandalorian, which is, yeah, that just ruined the whole show. Really, it's like, why do you need another show to help you out through this show? I mean, it might have been written that way, but this episode could have been like one of the first seasons of the Mandalorian, episode 1, season 3, episode 1. So it's just a little odd. But I mean, I get it, the fact that they're Mandalorians and Boba Fett was in the Mandalorian season 2, but still it just seemed kind of odd to do that. And it's like, well, now you have to make them watch this show to understand what he's going through in the next season. But whatever. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. The real question is, and maybe it's already been answered or not, what happened to what's her name? Bo-Katan. What happened after the end of the bridge? Where is she? Is she dead? Is she flee, or what happened? She mad at the Mandalorian, gonna fight again to get the dark saber? I don't know. All we know is that he the one thing that we knew before the book of Boba Fett actually aired is that if you watch the last episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian, you'll see that Fennec Shan was with Boba Fett on Tatooine. So at that point, only she knew what happened or knew what was going to happen after the end of the Mandalorian episode, the last episode of the second season. She was the only one still on the bridge with Mando that you saw at the end. So she escaped or knew what was happening. So Fennec knew what was going on or what had happened, or maybe she didn't. Maybe she left before what things went down. I don't know. So we don't know what happened to Bo-Katan. I'm assuming she's still alive. I haven't really seen the previews for Book of or not Book of Mandalorian season 3, and she's probably still alive. If not, it's disappointing that they killed her off camera. Or if they are, they're going to re-interact that scene where she's there or not. But then you really got to think about what are they going to do with Cara Dune. They might just do that off camera thing. I don't know. There's a lot of craziness going on after that season ended. So we'll see what happens in that. Bad Batch season 2 has just started. The first episode dropped. First 2 episodes dropped earlier this week on Tuesday morning or Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, wherever you may be at. I have not seen them yet. I am rewatching season 1 right now just to kind of remember exactly what's going on and kind of get a feel for the show again, see if there's anything I missed. Right now I'm at the part where the Bad Batch have just gotten their um, behavioral chips removed from their brains. So now they don't execute Order 66 before Wrecker started killing everybody or trying to kill everybody. And Rex was there and he left again. So we got to see Rex. And we're going to be on the next episode where Crosshair comes back and he's going to, try to kill them. And that doesn't work out successfully, obviously. But, it's going to be kind of, I hear it's good. I haven't seen anything as of yet of what's going on, or no spoilers, or try to keep my eyes away from the videos that are posted on YouTube by other uh, more popular streamers. So we really haven't really seen any of that, and you know, it's gonna be cool. I'm looking forward to actually sitting down to watch it. I know I just finished Andor about a week ago or so. And that show, if you haven't seen it already, I know I've said it before, but you should really watch it. It's a compelling show about how he becomes a character, how he wants to start fighting for the Republic. As a common thief who just wants to steal things just to make money so he can get away from the Empire, and then turning into a full fighting rebel. For a spoiler alert, who gets arrested for just doing nothing. He gets thrown in jail for just doing nothing so he could help build parts for the Death Star. And, you can only assume that certain characters, when they finally escaped the prison, just died or got recaptured, He's the only guy that you see escape besides the other gentleman who runs away, and then, what comes of him, we don't know. And, his friend there, he couldn't swim. Well, pretty sure he's dead or been recaptured and sentenced to life or whatever. Or there might be repercussions. They might just the Empire might just come in and just basically just nuke the whole facility. I don't know. It was never really explained, but it can be assumed that bad things happened, especially to the people on board. The Empire doesn't tolerate people's crap. So if you screw up or do anything evil, they will shut you down. Um, and then yeah, it's a good show. You should watch Andor. And I've already mentioned Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, that's a really good show too, per se. It's not as great as it could have been, but it tries to develop a character who's gone through his personal hell for 10 years of his life, having convinced himself that he had failed Yoda. He failed all his friends, even though he did defeat Mace Windu, or not Mace Windu, General Grievous. He still failed the Republic. He's unleashed the most insidious Emperor Sith Lord onto the galaxy. You know, Vader is out there just wrecking people's stuff, and the Emperor is in control. Which I don't know if Obi-Wan ever realized that it was Palpatine who was the Emperor or not. I don't know if he got that information. We're gonna assume that he did somehow know that, but you know, he never really saw that transformation. Really, he just knows that there's that Vader's in charge, or else he's a Sith Lord, and you know he lost to he won, but he lost a lot. He lost Padme, he lost all his friends, he lost all his comrades, he lost all his clone friends, he lost a lot of stuff, and he's going through severe problems now. Just like Anakin losing everything or Vader losing everything, Obi-Wan took a different approach to it. He was more traumatized by it and went into hiding, whereas Anakin just wanted to fix everything, and it ended up blowing up in his face literally, and that's what caused him to be that way. Where and in the end, it was a battle of both people who just lost everything, trying to see who was more worthy of getting things back, I guess. And Obi-Wan was the one that was ultimately victorious in that he got he became he even though he retreated, he dealt with his losses differently than Anakin did. He never went to the dark side, Obi-Wan. He always tried to stay with the light. And if it wasn't for, Leia and the whole situation, he probably would have stayed in, the shadows, just watching Luke from a distance, not really helping him personally. It was more of a he's more of a better way to handle the issue in a weird way. Even though he was reclusive and very, distant from people for 10 years, really didn't have a way to, he couldn't ask for help. He was a wanted man throughout the galaxy. Imperial soldiers looking for him, the Inquisitors looking for him, etc. He was doing his best to try to hide from everything. He was basically running away from his problems. And Anakin was just on a revenge mission just to destroy everything that everybody else built. Because he lost everything, he believes that everybody should lose everything is justifiable for his actions, I guess. In that, as Darth Vader, this is a deeper character. These are deeper characters than one thinks. It depends on how they deal with their things. And as a person who was born from nothing, trying to build up because everybody's like, oh, Anakin's the chosen one. He's the most powerful Jedi or in the whole galaxy. He'll bring balance to the Force, etc., etc. But people just not giving what he wanted, what he craved in life. Only certain people did. Like Padme gave him, love that he never had from, closer than his mother. I mean, he would have loved a father figure. Qui-Gon was going to be his father figure, but he ultimately got killed by Darth Maul, and that's what kind of set the tone for the movies. David Filoni had already said that in a couple other interviews that was a whole turning point right there. Is when Qui-Gon Jinn passed away. It was basically setting the stone that Obi-Wan had to be a father figure, and Obi-Wan was like a man who literally got a child that he didn't want. It wasn't like uh, the Mandalorian where eventually the kid grew on him, but Obi-Wan just never really wanted Anakin at all. Just as a friend, but nothing more. This is how it was. And that's what was so sad for Anakin, growing up without a father figure. Not saying that he can be fine or anything. It's just he never really dealt with his issues or knew how to deal with things problem, because he is in a group of people that basically forbid you from doing simple life activities, enjoying yourself, trying to get over dealing with your emotions. It was just basically locking him up and bottling him up, and eventually when things just started getting worse and worse for him, he just couldn't handle anymore and just let loose. And this evil that was been building up inside him, all these emotions that he didn't know how to deal with, this pain and hurt that he felt, it just came in and became Vader, like his other personality. And that's what happened. That's what Vader is. This is all his anger and his sadness just in encapsulated in this image of a dark lord filled with pain, both physically and emotionally and mentally. And that's what he is this a walking embodiment of just all the negative emotions that weren't expressed properly or given chance to, be expressed or shared with somebody. So now he's, out in the galaxy just tormenting people just to fill something that just can't be filled. Can't replace all the loss that he had. I mean, he lost the love of his life. He lost his best friend. He lost his limbs. He lost, his ability to be free. And, Sidious just uses him as his enforcer to go around the galaxy and force, you know, his will upon people. That's why I see, um, Vader is kind of like his Palpatine's just enforcer. If something isn't getting done, he just sends Vader over there to get done. And yeah, Vader does succeed, and sometimes he fails, but it's not really a fun life. When basically you're living in your own personal hell, and you have to go out and give other people hell. Do things that you would never have done before as Anakin Skywalker. He never let go. He never really lost the light in him, which is what Luke found, that Anakin never really died, even though Vader said, "Oh, I've killed Anakin. He is no more. He's dead." No, he's still in there. It's it was Luke trying to pull him out, which is the essence. Going back to what I said earlier, it was basically Padme, um, as Luke Skywalker. In that moment, he saw his wife in his son's eyes, and that's what kind of begged him back to the light. So, you know, it is a tragic story when you think about it. Back in the 80s, though, we never got this story. We didn't know who he was. We just knew Vader was an evil person and was intimidating Sith Lord. I mean, he was a man in a mask with computer parts and knew how to beat people down with lightsaber. Even though we basically killed more, um, seemed like he can kill just as many Republic, or I guess Imperial officers as he did rebels, but he was the one that killing him on the Death Star, anyways. But most of the time he force choked people to death, and he was just this mean person who didn't care. He was voted once, I believe, the number one villain of all time because, well, he wore black, he had an intimidating voice, and he was deadly. End discussion. And he was just there was no thought behind why he was doing this. And then when you get a backstory behind it, and in the 90s and early 2000s, we didn't really like the character as much because we were like, oh, this acting is terrible. Oh my God, everybody's so wooden and everything. And the CGI is garbage and yada, yada, yada. But you look back and try to figure out what Lucas was writing back then, it would have been a different story if we actually, understood where he was coming from, not looking at the scenery, not looking at the acting, but looking at what the characters were doing. What were they trying to accomplish? Stuff like that. We missed that point, and we just harassed the hell out of Ahmad Best and Jake Lloyd, etc., and George Lucas and everybody, and we just told them, "Hey, we don't like this stuff. This was bad. What was wrong with you?" And then you look back at it 10 years later or 20 years later, and you're like, man, what the hell were we thinking insulting these people? Sorry. Personally, myself, I'm sorry that I said bad things about Jar Jar Binks and Ahmad Best's acting. I never really hated the actor. I never wrote any insults to anybody. I just felt to myself like, man, this stuff sucks. And looking back on all of it, trying to understand this boy who was indoctrinated into a group of people where he's not allowed to show emotion at all, trying his best to refrain from showing emotion, explains why he's so, emotionless. He's just trained to try to be the best Jedi there ever is. So he's really, really trying hard to hide his emotions. And that's why the acting's very wooden. Now, I can't say a thing for Natalie Portman, maybe because she's or Queen Amidala, excuse me, not Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman's awesome. Um, But Queen Amidala is supposed to be a queen all the time. She's supposed to have this image of, royalty, of, I'm, high up there. I'm not just an average citizen. I need to show everybody that I am, elegant and graceful and emotionless and a strong leader. And that's probably why her acting is like that way too. She's not a bad actor. It's just that's what the character is basically a person who has a self image of trying to be royalty. Whereas, no, you see her as, when she goes and bees her, well, becomes her assistant, so to speak, then she's, lying about it and everything. She's becoming more natural. And that's how she got away with that. So you watch her in the Phantom Menace before she tells everybody I'm Queen Amidala. That's the way she's in hiding. But when she's Queen Amidala, she has to be like her other self, the one with all the makeup and the hair pieces, etc. Which, I get. I mean, looking back on it, it makes sense. This is a different culture. We need to treat these people as their own. This is how they believe things are done. We see other people in Star Wars universes with weird clothes and so forth, but we make it seem like it's a bad thing that she's dressed like that, or wears makeup, or has goofy clothes. But Lucas was trying to get some sort of Eastern Asian vibe, as well as other cultures besides or fictional cultures, making this makeup and hair pieces, etc., the way they are. And these are really good movies. In retrospect, you look at them differently, and you'll look at the other ones differently too. In the next 5 or 10 years, you'll see, my God, I really hated The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, and then you turn around 10 years later and be like, yeah, these were actually pretty good movies. I don't know what I was thinking. And granted, Rise of Skywalker is still kind of tough to sit through for me. Um, Considering it felt like two movies crammed into one, and I felt like it should have been in two parts. I'll stand by that argument for a test of time. If they did it with the Harry Potter movies, why didn't they do it with the Star Wars movies? Listen, if you like any of these conversations or any of the videos on the stream, just follow me on social media on the links below to Facebook, Twitter, whatever, Instagram. You can follow me on those, or you can keep watching my streams, or you can go to my recommended channels. I have a few recommended channels for people that are not really my friends, but they're people that say, yeah, I got their back if they want followers or need directions or anywhere else. But back to Star Wars and the movies in general. Growing up in the 80s, you see what the Industrial Light and Magics have done for the movie industry with, I think their best thing is the Attack on Hoth. You look at the behind the scenes work and how they made the Attack on Hoth possible, and you go, oh my God, that is insane. They did all that work. It took forever just to make an AT-AT move like a foot. I don't mean a foot as in one of their leg foots. I mean like a foot in distance. Stuff like that. They stop motion animation, these little trap doors under the ground that they had to, lift up, move it, go back down, lift up, move it, take a picture, go back down, etc. Just to animate this stuff was crazy. It's respectful that these people did all this work. And yeah, it looks a little dated these days when you watch the original stuff, and but that's just how it is. That's what they had at the time. You got to respect that. I mean, sometimes if you watch some of these older movies, you can kind of see uh, this little box images outside the ships where they've been, where the images is, or it's been superimposed over this other background. Like I've seen that in like the Star Trek movies, and at least in Star Trek 4, you'll see this boxes of light around the Klingon bird of prey as it goes around the sun. It's something you have to look for, but you have to have a different brightness on your TV set to see these kind of behind the graphics sort of thing. And you'll see stars and the nacelles of the Reliant in Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan. It doesn't bother me much real bit. It's like, well, this is what we had for the time. We had these giant models, these huge models that they used to make these these things come to life for you. And they don't do that anymore. I mean, the last TV show that used models was, I believe, DS9, Star Trek DS9. They don't do models anymore. Usually, it's all CGI stuff. Some people still use practical models, you know, for fun, but it's not the same anymore. When you have something you can do for less and do more cool stuff with it, you hardly go back to the models anymore. And it. I don't know if it makes it better or worse, or if it looks better now. Because back in the '90s, it was these were pioneering ideas with the droids and the scenery, the landscapes that he wanted to paint. Originally George Lucas wanted to use Alderaan. He wanted actually scenes on Alderaan, but the budget was just too constrained, so he decided to blow it up. Well, hey, we were going to shoot some scenes on Alderaan, but yeah, let's just blow it up instead. I lost money, let's blow it up. Makes sense. And you know, they can only do with what money they had to make this thing work, and that's what kind of made it impressive. Can you imagine Star Wars nowadays if they reshot it with going through going to Alderaan? It'd probably be boring. You know, I don't know. I don't know what they had in mind. Hell, that's why they had the transport in the Star Trek series. It was too expensive to shoot the shuttlecraft landing, so they came up with a whole new concept, a plot thing, plot device to make things go from one area to another. Made sense. Excuse me. But anyways, let's move on to other topics. Since we already jumped around Obi-Wan and Star Wars a lot. And then there was the book of Boba Fett. We already talked about that. I mean, for as far as TV shows go, I never really, and that's going to give me a lot of hate, but I never really cared for Boba Fett as a character. Um, I know they got all this backstory and stuff now to make him a little bit more interesting, but back in the 80s and 90s, he really wasn't that interesting of a character. He was just said a few lines of dialogue and stood around with a blaster, and that's about it. And had this cool spaceship. He took Han Solo. He died like a bitch by Han. His jetpack launched him into the damn side of Jabba the Hutt's little hover ship, and fell into the Sarlacc pit. And you're calling that guy a BA? What's wrong with you people? But he inspired a lot of people to like him. And he gets a TV show. And that just tells all the people that really like Boba Fett, yeah, I hate Boba Fett. Oh, I just don't, I guess I never really got it. The show itself was very clunky and slow. But, you know, it's still a Star Wars show. I'll watch it again, in the future. I feel like Fennec Shand did all the legwork and actually could have been the better leader. And for the reason why she was there is like, well, we need somebody on the show that people like kind of think is cool, I guess. Put Fennec on. Fennec is a really great character. I like that she showed up in the Bad Batch for a little bit too, for like 2 episodes. And and just for a character that was in 1 episode of The Mandalorian, but turns out to be, more interesting of a character, which you kind of want to see her own stories or something. But she did between the Bad Batch and the Book of Boba Fett, not Book of Boba Fett, the Mandalorian. Stuff that she did beforehand. Her bounty quest or whatever she did, or I would like to see her go up against Dr. Aphra somewhere along the line. I would have to think those two have met somewhere in either a comic book or story. I would think that'd be cool. Like one was after the other one or something like that. That would be really interesting. That's one character I really, 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 really want to see in live action. They've been kind of tiptoeing around. It drives me nuts. Is Dr. Aphra. They had Black Chrysanthemum on in the Book of Boba Fett. They could have had Dr. Aphra. She's an important character. you know, it's it's sad. Or maybe she might be this. I doubt she's going to be in the Ahsoka show. I doubt if anything, you'll see her in any of the other shows. Um, I was kind of hoping to see her in the Book of Boba Fett actually showing up, just to kind of, get Black Chrysanthemum back or whatever. But yeah, she's a really interesting character that just kind of gets brushed aside she's in the comic books. She's got her own line of comic books. They're pretty interesting comic books. They're not bad. She helps Darth Vader. She's in the freaking EA mobile game now as a playable character you can get, or in your team if you want. But as far as being in live action, nothing's been made for her yet. You know, she's a pretty interesting character. As a archaeologist slash thief slash whatever errand girl. So it's like Indiana Jones in space, sort of. Except for if Indiana Jones was a little bit more I want the money kind of or I'm just it for the knowledge or doing weird stuff for other people. If you haven't read any of her Dr. Aphra comics, I recommend those. They're actually pretty good. Um, and I would have liked to seen her in live action at some point, but I doubt Disney's going to actually do that. Or if Dave Filoni or whoever wants to put her in there, it would be like maybe a brief one-off or something like that. And I doubt, like I said, I doubt she's gonna be in the Ahsoka show. It would be interesting if she was in there for no reason other than that. The Ahsoka show I'm looking forward to. This comes out later this year, I believe summer. I want to say, or close to the end of the year. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked up any information on Ahsoka or Acolyte for that matter, or the Skeleton Crew. Um, but I've been looking forward for the Ahsoka show for a while now. As far as characters go, originally she was probably the most annoying characters in the Clone Wars. Why the hell are we watching this show? She's the most annoying character. She's whiny. She's snippy. I get that's her nickname, but of all the characters in the show, she was annoying. And then over time, as the show progressed on, she got more and more in tune with herself. The character developed stronger, more likable, more interesting. It's seen some stuff, done something. It's crazy, but she kind of grew on me as a character. And then when you watch, I believe season 5 or 6, whatever it is, season 5, I think it is, where she gets the trial, where she gets put on trial for assuming that she's the one that did all the problems. The Jedi and the Jedi didn't believe her, neither than Anakin, and she goes on a whole fugitive episode, which is like it's pretty much a homage to the Fugitive. If you've ever seen the Fugitive movie or TV show, that season is basically when Ahsoka's on the run from the law. It's basically that. There was almost a scene where I literally thought when they were in a sewer or something, and she's at the end, and Rex was be like, Ahsoka's like, I didn't kill my wife, and Rex would go, I don't care. I was waiting for one of those moments, but it did have a kind of an homage to the Fugitive. And when she left the show, and then they brought her back for the seventh and final season of the Clone Wars, and that was really great. The Darth Maul Ahsoka fight scene was probably the best fight scene in the series, next to Darth Sidious versus Darth Maul and Savage Opress. That was a hell of a fight too. But this one, because Ray Park reprised his role as Darth Maul in the motion capture, and they had another lady there. I can't remember her name. I feel bad for not remembering who it was. They were both professional sword fighters. And they basically did the whole thing, and it was so. You gotta like that kind of stuff for the motion capture. I have not heard much of Acolyte, but I do know there's a female lead in it. And it's about how the Sith infiltrated the Republic. So this might be a precursor to Pelagius before Sidious is in charge. So I'm assuming the Acolyte is being trained by a Sith Lord who trains Pelagius or not. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to keep Pelagius in or not. I don't know how long ago it is before the events of Phantom Menace, But this is supposed to be how the Sith infiltrated the Republic into politics and getting control before Sidious takes charge, I guess. Because if you read the book Darth Plagueis, which I have, the events happen before and during episode 1 of The Phantom Menace. And it's about how Plagueis is like, he kills his master and eventually become friends with Palpatine as he's growing up, and gets Palpatine to, one, murder his family, and two, get into politics to a point where he becomes a prominent senator of Naboo. And he works up the ranks, and Plagueis is basically funding him because Plagueis is loaded. He is a rich person in that, because he's a Mun, and Mun are responsible for the Bankers Guild. If you've watched the Clone Wars, they're basically the ones that fund the war for both the Republic as well for the Separatists, which is a weird thing, but they get away with it. I know he's money, he has a lot of money at hand, and he's telling Sidious how to manipulate the war so that the he convinces the people, hey, you guys need to do this so that you can get more money, and you need help because these sectors of space the Republic doesn't care about, and this leads up to the whole Civil War thing. And that's why they explained why Naboo is being held captive, because one, Naboo has these gas pockets that they want to mine from uh, to get profit so they can open up the way for the galaxy, so to speak. And the Trade Federation figures this out. They've blocked the transportation of these fuel pockets, and you know they convince they convince the he convinces them to do this, to stop, so that he can manipulate this war. It's a really interesting strategy how all this came to pass, how he planned pretty much everything. And you watch the Clone Wars, and like he does other things too. It's crazy that he set this all up, and it worked in his favor. Even though there's this, you watch episode 3, the whole him escaping the ship is hilarious. That he he's watching his future apprentice help him out because he has to pretend he's a feeble old man. As the ship is going down, they're doing weird crap. It's crazy as hell if you really watch it in retrospect. Knowing what Palpatine knows in the events that it all brought up to this point in time, and then realizing that Anakin's the stronger member, and killing Dooku, which was pretty brutal considering what Dooku was going through. He just wanted representation for the people that never had representation from the Republic before. He was literally fighting to bring the Jedi back to what they were. Not police or military for the Republic, just defenders of the Republic, keepers of the peace. And they lost their ways. And Dooku saw this, and that's why he joined Sidious, because he was just tired of the Jedi just, being the Republic's lapdog. And since he was a person of noble lineage, if you read the book A Jedi Fallen, I believe, or what it is, or it's a storybook novel of him talking about his past, or no, Ventress learning of his past through holotapes that she listens to of Count Dooku's life on his home world and growing up, and him almost falling in love, learning the ways of the Jedi, and growing disdain for how things are, and Palpatine talking to him. And they have that a little bit of Palpatine in the Plagueis books too, talking to Sidious, and how Sidious convinces him to join the Empire, or not the Empire, but the Separatist movement. It's pretty interesting, and is a deeper character than the movies portray him. It's really sad that you have to watch the Clone Wars and read the books in order to understand how more complex this character really is. He was not just some guy who's just, I just don't want to be a Jedi anymore, I'm joining the Sith. Kind of sad, but he had a noble cause, but he was ultimately going to be betrayed by his master, and that's what happened. he should have seen that coming. But he was overconfident. But whatever. Anyways, so Acolytes should be coming out this year. Hopefully, we'll get to see more information on that as we get closer to the year. Jedi Survivor is also coming out too in March. I'm not sure if I'm going to get that immediately or not. Probably going to wait till Steam has like a nice sale on that, and I probably won't be playing that for stream. Um, I have ideas what I want to do with the stream after this current set is done. Obviously, we're in the middle of Borderlands 2. We're kind of skipped over a lot of things recently. We're going back to do some of the side clips that were skipped. I have this fellow streamer who's our fellow Borderlands 2 player that pretty much all he does is play Borderlands 2, and he's already up to level 60 even on the day before he was like in his 30s. Like, wow, okay then. Or has a different character. And I only play for the stream, so my character is the way my character is. So we're going back and doing some of the side quests before we beat the game. We're pretty much, I want to say, at the last third of the game, because I'm already at level 30, and usually like level 30, 40 is when the game gets down to the end. So we're a little ways away from being finished. I believe we got a little, I'll say 3 or 4 maps left to do before we're done. And then that's it. That's the end of Borderlands 2. It should be another week or 2 before we finish the game, depending how fast we go through these episodes. Hell, we might even do Tiny Tina's Adventure. We might do the Badass Crater of Badassitude. I don't think we want to do the other ones because the other ones weren't that fun. Those two stick out as probably being the more interesting ones in that Torque is hilarious. I like that character. And, Tiny Tina's Adventures is probably cool because that kind of sparked the other game that they came out with where you can be a role playing character and then go through the game playing a Borderlands 2 style game, which I haven't purchased yet. But I hear it went on sale on Steam for about 50% off, but that's still like 20 some odd bucks. So I'm kind of, I don't know if I want it yet or not. I've talked to a person a couple months ago saying they play that game and it was pretty sweet. I might buy it one of these days and stream it. We'll see. It'd probably be basically buy the game and then just stream it without even having played it before. See how this works out, See how fast we can get through it. I don't know. But yeah, that's basically short and long of what's been going on this past week. So we won't be streaming tomorrow. I'll be out of town for the first time in months. I'm looking forward to that. And I don't really think I'll be back on Sunday night at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tune in. Follow me on social media if you liked all this. Like my videos. Subscribe. Donate to your imagination because I don't really have a donation box. Keep watching Star Wars. Keep following the streams. Write comments on videos or send me comments in video games. Maybe say something silly. Whatever. I have a chat box on pretty much all my streams, so I can see it and the audience can see it. But yeah, thanks for watching. All you Sith Lords, Darths, and Acolytes. Until next time, may the Force ever serve you well.